Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Ben and I. We're doing a two-person video, throwing it back a little bit. We're discussing which team is better, Michigan or Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame just suffered a loss yesterday to the Cincinnati Bearcats. You're watching those games highlights right here. Michigan had a phenomenal win in Madison, Wisconsin against the Badgers. Right now, the rankings say Michigan is better. I am the Notre Dame fan out of the two, agree with that. Ben, on the other side of the line, is the Michigan fan, and he would agree as well. But we're going to go in depth on how the season has started so far through 5 games, what's going to go on for the rest of the season. Of course, if you're ND, you're hoping to win out and make a New Year's Six and win that. If you're Michigan, you're hoping, honestly, playoff possibly, Ben. I'll let you take the floor.
As a Michigan fan, when the year started, there was not much consideration to the playoff. I predicted us to have an 8-4 record, assuming losses to Wisconsin, Penn State, Ohio State, and then one other loss that I was not sure where it would come, but I just assumed that Michigan would go 8-4, 9-3, somewhere in that range. And so far, my expectations have been exceeded. The team has looked pretty solid on basically every level. I would say, though, that if I had to think about the playoff right now, it's too far in the future for me to really think about it. I really think if Michigan can get through until Penn State, which is, I believe, in 4 weeks' time, if we will be 8-0, and if we can get through that game, it'll all come down to the Ohio State game. And I'm not sure how we stack up to that team yet. But, yeah, it's been an exciting start to the year for sure.
This weekend will be big for the playoff and for the Big Ten. Number 3, Iowa hosts number 4, Penn State. Am I correct on that in the new AP poll?
Yes.
So that game will be crazy. I think it's an absolute joke that College Game Day is not headed to Ames, Iowa, and they are instead headed to Texas for the Texas-Oklahoma game. That's just my take on the situation, though. But, yeah, should be a lot of fun. That game kicks off at 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox. That game has major implications regarding Michigan. Notre Dame's not in the playoff conversation anymore, but I think at this point in time, we expect Georgia and Alabama to make it. They are undefeated, and even a one-loss Alabama losing to Georgia in the SEC championship game or vice versa, I think they would still make it. Oklahoma State, maybe an unbeaten Big 12 team sneaks in there. That team is most likely Oklahoma, but they've looked shaky at times. Big 10, if you get an undefeated Big 10 team, they're of course going to make it. Pac-12 is out of it at this point. Same with the ACC. So honestly, this is Cincinnati's year. Talking back on the Cincinnati point, as you see Chris Tyree fumbles and Cincinnati gets some points out of it.
Saw that.
So it was an interesting game to say the least. But Cincinnati's a talented team, well coached. Luke Fickell has been one of the hottest names in the college football coaching search for many, many years. People say unless it's Ohio State or Notre Dame, he's not going to take it. Michigan may be in that conversation as well. That's been the rumor. USC has been talked about a little bit as well. I think he sticks at Cincinnati until the Notre Dame opening comes about, probably in 2026 when Brian Kelly leaves. I don't think Brian Kelly stays any longer. He's extended till then, and that's probably all she wrote under Kelly's career in South Bend. Now, Fickell and Cincinnati, you're not going to have a better chance than this. Pretty much everyone returned for the Bearcats. Of course, their defensive coordinator did not, Marcus Freeman, who's on the other side of the field on Saturday. But Cincinnati, very, very talented team. They're going to go undefeated most likely. I would be shocked if they didn't. And so, Ben, I'll give the mic to you. In your opinion, right now, we'll go to the playoff, and then we'll go back to Michigan because we've been talking Notre Dame. Notre Dame's out of the playoff. They're just looking at a New Year's Six, like I previously said. Who's in your playoff right now? What's that picture looking like in your head?
Well, you touched on the SEC. It really narrows the playoff field down when you have two teams like Alabama and Georgia. Each of them could probably lose a game before. I guess I would see if Alabama lost a game or if Georgia lost a game in the conference schedule and then went on to win the SEC championship, they would most likely, if not definitely, make the playoff. And so I think they're both looking very strong to make the playoff. And then you have the ACC as a non-factor. The Pac-12, unless Oregon, I really don't think Oregon's even much of a factor, but they did have the Ohio State win, so they're the only possible team with a small chance. Big 12 is all Oklahoma, and I don't think Oklahoma is strong enough to make the playoff this year. I believe they'll lose a game or two.
I agree. I think they're going to get upset.
So I'm not really thinking of them as a solid threat. I think the Big Ten has kind of similar potential with the SEC as making possibly two teams get into playoff. That would be my scenario in which Cincinnati does not make the playoff. To have a two Big Ten, two SEC playoff in which like you think about like Iowa or Penn State. Like if Iowa goes undefeated and then loses in the Big Ten championship game to a one-loss Penn State team or a one-loss Ohio State team or a one-loss Michigan team, or Iowa wins everything and then beats like an undefeated Michigan or an undefeated Penn State in the Big Ten championship, I think you could argue that both those teams deserve to get in, just as much as you could argue Alabama and Georgia deserve to get in. So I think that the most likely scenario in which Cincinnati does not get in is where you see just two conferences in the CFP, the Big Ten and the SEC.
That's a good point, Ben. But I want to say something. Ohio State played Oregon at home, and that was a top 10 matchup. I wouldn't play anyone tough. Penn State played Auburn at home. Is Auburn as good as Oregon now?
So,
but Auburn's a solid team. But has Michigan really played anyone super strong yet on the road or at home that would catch the eye of the voters? I don't know. That's my issue with Michigan making it. Now, if Michigan goes undefeated, they'll, of course, make the college football playoff. You got to get by Ohio State. You then have to get by Iowa, most likely. So we'll see. But honestly, right now, odds are against Michigan.
And I just want to touch on Cincinnati. I don't know if this is enough of a – I don't know if one Notre Dame win is enough to make the playoff this year. I don't know how good Notre Dame is this year. It remains to be seen when they get some – slightly higher quality competition against Virginia Tech, North Carolina, but
USC, yeah, no, for sure.
And Indiana this year as well. That was the other marquee matchup for Cincinnati. And Indiana is looking like a below-average Big Ten team this year. I hate to say it, they're not what they were expected to be. They put up an absolute dud against Penn State, and they barely beat Western Kentucky last week. So I'm not thinking Indiana is all that great for your resume. And then when you look at the rest of their season, they're going against an American conference that's really weak this year, except for
no, for sure. Their hardest opponent left is Tulane. Granted, it's in New Orleans, but I mean, you're right. UCF was supposed to be a big game at home. UCF is without Dylan Gabriel. That team is not looking like anything special. But yeah,
you'd have to get to the. I think their best chance is win the AAC, the conference championship game against like an SMU with Tanner Mordecai. Maybe SMU will be ranked, and that'll be another ranked win. I'm not sure.
I agree. You got to blow it. You got to do it in convincing fashion. Get some help. Need Oklahoma or Texas to lose maybe another game. Texas is still in this conversation. They're 4-1. Got to talk about them. BYU I saw was number 5, and RJ Young, who's a CBS 247 analyst, I believe. He had BYU at number 5. I think that's a little high. Sure, they had a nice win against Arizona State. I saw that game, but yeah, it's really wide open. This is why the playoff is awesome. I personally enjoy the 4 teams. A lot of people don't. I think 4, 6, or 8 is the perfect number. Some people want 16 or 12. I don't. I really like where the college football playoff is at right now. And honestly, Cincinnati, they have all the momentum right now. They're a huge win in South Bend, program-defining, program-changing win. We'll see what happens. Of course, there is a lot of time left in the season. We're not even halfway there, but it'll be a fun ride for Michigan and Notre Dame. But let's get back to the question of the video. Who is better, Michigan or Notre Dame? I'm taking the Wolverines.
I'll touch on that real quick. It's hard not to take Michigan after the first 5 games of the season. Notre Dame has looked relatively weak, especially when you compare them to last year or the year before. They just don't have the same firepower. The quarterback play has been nowhere near the level that Ian Book provided. And I don't see this Notre Dame team being a top 10 quality team. I think Notre Dame's still a top 25 football team. I'm not sure this is a near 6th-level team either. But I think Michigan is. I think Michigan is a top 15 team at worst as at the moment. And even if the season doesn't pan out, even if Michigan takes losses to Penn State and Ohio State, I think that this football team is in the right direction after what was a dismal 2020 season. I think Jim Harbaugh, deserves another chance if this season goes to the script that it looks like it is going. So I'm happy with what we look like right now, and I do believe Michigan is the superior team.
I personally think Notre Dame is a New Year's Six quality team. Sure, that might not be what a lot of people think right now, but I don't know. I think Brian Kelly, he's proven this year in and year out. He's going to get his team back on track. USC at home won't be easy. Virginia Tech on the road at night in Lane Stadium. That's not going to be easy either. North Carolina at home is looking a little bit easier than it did before the season started. And then Stanford on the road, that might be the hardest game left on the schedule.
Stanford's looking good.
So we'll see. If Notre Dame wins out, I think they absolutely have to be a New Year's Six team.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, I want to say this. Brian Kelly never won a New Year's Six bowl game. Never. Pretty remarkable. They had a really, really good shot against Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. I believe that was 2015, maybe 2017 with Will Fuller and Jalen Smith. 2015, I believe. Jalen Smith got hurt.
Didn't he? Was that his ACL?
Yeah. And that was, I believe, in the third or second quarter, and that kind of shifted the tide of the game, and Ohio State ran away with it. But that was, yeah, I mean, Brian Kelly's yet to win a New Year's Six game. If you're a Notre Dame fan and this was supposed to be a transition year, if Notre Dame wins the New Year's Six game, gets pretty much everyone back, you can't be upset, and you get Ohio State in the shoe first week of the season next year, and then you travel to Clemson on November 7th. Or excuse me, Clemson comes to South Bend on November 7th in 2022 for a game. That should be interesting. So yeah, if you're Notre Dame, you win a New Year's Six bowl game, you go 11-1 in the regular season, and you get pretty much everyone back. You can't be upset with the season whatsoever, and pick up some big recruits on the way too.
And real quick, you just named Clemson. I wanted to touch on Clemson just because we're doing a college football podcast, and it's kind of stunning to see where that team's at right now, especially offensively. They just it's serious decline from last season.
It's a different, yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. It's weird to see.
Yeah, it's understandable. You're losing Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Justin Ross is kind of in and out of the lineup with injuries.
Yeah, hurt last game.
You're losing weapons and you're losing experience. So honestly, I hope DJ Uiagalelei figures it out because he has talent, but
he's a great guy. Really ugly. It's been rough. This reminds me a lot of 2016 Notre Dame. This was a year that the Irish went 4-8, and everything looked like a complete dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame then comes back the year after that, I believe, goes 9-3. Year after that, makes the college football playoff. Year after that, 10-2. Year after that, college football playoff, and now we're here. So Brian Kelly turned it around because people were calling for Brian Kelly to leave. That was it. This next year, because Clemson isn't going to do anything this year, I don't think. Let's say they don't do much. They go 500 or a little bit above, a little bit under, like most people are projecting right now. Because the ACC isn't that hard. Because they looked like a lock to the college football playoff this year, even with a tight Georgia loss at the beginning of the year. Like, if everything pans out and they get back to the Clemson we're seeing, they can maybe make it.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, this is going to be huge for Dabo. He needs to get the recruits coming. He needs to have some good off-season training, and then he needs to have a good year next year. The dynasty's done. Paul Feinbaum on ESPN already said the dynasty's done. I'm not going that far. I'm going to give him at least another 16 or 18 months because I want to see what happens next year as well. But I mean, hey, it's weird times in Death Valley.
And I will say it makes me appreciate Alabama.
Absolutely.
It's just unbelievable.
It's a factory.
It's a factory at its finest.
Nick Saban is the best college coach of all time. I don't think I don't know. There's nothing like it.
He is a winning coach at just probably the greatest college coach since John Wooden when it comes to just winning. So he's done something right down there in Tuscaloosa. He's always been a great coach, but he's really taken it to the next level here. And I think for the foreseeable future, Alabama's going to be in that conversation until he leaves. So yeah, Alabama's up there, Georgia's up there this year, and it's a lot of question marks after that. I think the Big Ten will fill one of those playoff spots, if not two, and then Cincinnati debate. We could see maybe Oklahoma, another Big 12 team.
I'm hoping for the Bearcats. Not even to make Notre Dame look better. I just would love to. I think the world wants to see Cincinnati in the playoff, to be quite frank. They're going to get blown out by Georgia or Alabama, but so who cares? To make the playoff, that's just incredible.
That's one other pet peeve of the playoff for me is that the 1v4 matchup is often very lopsided. It's hard to get that to work, but I think an 8-team playoff where you have maybe a different format or something would make it a little more fun. Or a 16 playoff where it's like 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5, and then 1 and 2 get buys. Something like that, just to spice it up, where you're not getting the same dominance over and over again. I think just touching on the football format itself, I think that could be fun, but that's a different debate.
Well, yeah, thank you for joining me, Ben. I appreciate it. All you viewers, sorry this turned into kind of a college football debate, but hey, Ben and I used to do these shows pretty religiously back in lockdown COVID times, so we enjoyed getting back to the podcast format. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you leave a like, comment. I will respond to all comments. And that's it from me. Peace.